In the opulent halls of Valdoria Palace, where golden chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors, young Princess Amelia never imagined that her innocent plea of, "Please stop," would unravel a conspiracy that threatened to destroy her family's thousand-year reign. What began as a simple request to her overzealous royal guard would lead to the discovery of a secret so devastating that it would shake the very foundations of the kingdom. Some secrets are buried for good reason, but when Captain Marcus Thornfield accidentally stumbled upon a hidden chamber beneath the royal library, he realized that protecting the princess meant more than just guarding her from physical harm. It meant protecting her from a truth that could destroy everything she believed about her royal bloodline. The autumn rain pelted against the towering windows of Valdoria Palace as Princess Amelia hurried through the grand corridor, her silk slippers barely making a sound on the polished marble floor. At 17, she possessed the grace expected of royalty, but today her usual composure was replaced by visible frustration. Behind her, Captain Marcus Thornfield maintained his professional distance, his hand resting casually on the pommel of his ceremonial sword. "Captain, please." Amelia turned suddenly, causing her elaborate emerald gown to swirl around her ankles. "You've been following me for 3 hours. I'm merely going to the library. Surely even you must agree that books pose little threat to my well-being." Marcus, a man of 30 with steel-grey eyes and a face marked by years of military service, remained unmoved. "Your Highness, recent intelligence suggests increased rebel activity in the capital. The king has ordered enhanced security measures for all members of the royal family." "Enhanced security," Amelia repeated, her violet eyes flashing with annoyance. "Is that what you call hovering behind me like an oversized shadow? Please stop treating me like a helpless child. I've walked these halls my entire life." The princess had grown increasingly rebellious over the past months, much to the concern of her parents, King Edward and Queen Isabella of Valdoria. The kingdom had been experiencing political unrest with growing calls for democratic reform and whispers of corruption within the royal court. The Thornfield family had served as royal guards for generations, and Marcus had been personally assigned to protect Amelia since her 16th birthday. As they approached the ancient library, Amelia's demeanor softened slightly. The vast room, with its towering shelves reaching toward the cathedral ceiling, had always been her sanctuary. Thousands of leather-bound volumes chronicled the history of Valdoria, from its founding by King Aldrich the Great to the present day. The late afternoon sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the reading tables. "Very well, Your Highness," Marcus conceded, positioning himself near the entrance. "I shall remain here while you pursue your studies." Amelia offered him a grateful smile before disappearing between the towering bookshelves. She made her way to her favorite alcove in the far corner of the library, where a comfortable reading chair sat beside a small table. It was here that she often escaped the pressures of royal life, losing herself in tales of adventure and romance. However, today her mind was too restless for reading. The political situation in Valdoria had grown increasingly tense, and despite her parents' attempts to shield her from the harsh realities of governance, Amelia was well aware of the growing discontent among the people. The recent economic downturn had led to widespread unemployment and food shortages, while the royal family continued to live in luxury. As she sat in contemplation, a strange sound caught her attention. It was a low, rhythmic tapping, almost like Morse code, coming from somewhere behind the bookshelf that housed the oldest historical texts. Curiosity overrode caution as she stood and approached the ancient volumes, many of which hadn't been disturbed in decades. The tapping grew louder as she pressed her ear against the leather-bound spine of the Chronicles of King Aldrich. To her amazement, the sound seemed to be coming from within the wall itself. Running her fingers along the bookshelf, she discovered that one section felt different from the others, slightly warm to the touch and vibrating almost imperceptibly. Meanwhile, Captain Thornfield had grown concerned by the princess's prolonged silence. His military training had taught him to trust his instincts, and something felt wrong. The palace had been unusually quiet today, with several key staff members conspicuously absent. He had noticed strange glances exchanged between certain courtiers during the morning briefing, and now a sense of unease settled over him like a heavy cloak. Moving quietly through the library, he called out softly, "Your Highness? Is everything well?" When no response came, his concern deepened. Following the path Amelia had taken, he found her standing before the historical section, her hands pressed against the bookshelf with an expression of intense concentration. "Princess, what are you doing?" She turned to him with excitement dancing in her eyes. "Captain, listen." Do you hear that sound? Marcus strained his ears, and indeed caught the faint tapping noise. His expression immediately grew serious. In his years of service, he had learned that unusual sounds in ancient buildings often meant danger. Drawing closer to the bookshelf, he began a systematic examination of the volumes. "Step back, Your Highness," he commanded, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he reserved for genuine threats. As Marcus ran his hands along the books, he discovered what Amelia had found, the strange warmth and vibration. But his trained eyes noticed something else. Faint scratches around the edges of several books, as if they had been moved recently and repeatedly. Following his instincts, he grasped the spine of the Chronicles of King Aldrich and pulled. The book didn't come free from the shelf as expected. Instead, it clicked, and a section of the bookshelf swung inward like a door, revealing a narrow stone passageway beyond. Cool air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something else, something that made both Amelia and Marcus exchange worried glances. "By the crown," Amelia whispered, her earlier frustration forgotten in the face of this remarkable discovery. Marcus immediately stepped in front of the princess, his hand now firmly gripping his sword hilt. "Your Highness, we should alert the palace guard immediately." But Amelia's adventurous spirit had been awakened. "Captain, this is my family's palace. If there are secrets hidden within these walls, don't I have a right to know them?" The tapping sound continued from within the passageway, more insistent now, as if whoever, or whatever, was making it knew they had been discovered. Marcus found himself torn between his duty to protect the princess and his own curiosity about what lay beyond the hidden door. "If we're going to investigate," he said finally, "we do this properly. Stay behind me at all times, and at the first sign of danger we retreat immediately." Amelia nodded eagerly, though Marcus noted she made no verbal promise to obey. Taking a torch from a nearby wall sconce, he lit it and stepped into the passageway, with the princess close behind. The narrow corridor was carved from the same stone as the palace's foundation, but its construction was much older. The walls were covered with strange symbols that neither Marcus nor Amelia recognized, and the air grew colder as they progressed deeper into the hidden passage. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only a few minutes, they emerged into a circular chamber that took their breath away. The room was illuminated by some sort of phosphorescent moss growing on the walls, casting an eerie green glow over everything. But it wasn't the lighting that shocked them. It was what the light revealed. The chamber was clearly ancient, predating the current palace by centuries. Stone pillars carved with intricate designs supported a dome ceiling, and in the center of the room stood a massive stone table covered with documents, maps, and artifacts. But most disturbing of all were the paintings that covered the walls. Portraits that bore striking resemblances to members of the current royal family, yet were clearly painted hundreds of years ago. "Captain," Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible, "those faces, they look like you and your family." Marcus finished grimly. As they moved closer to examine the portraits, the tapping sound suddenly stopped. In the ensuing silence, they heard something far more alarming, the sound of footsteps approaching from another passage they hadn't noticed before. Someone else was in the hidden chamber, and they were no longer alone. The footsteps echoed through the ancient chamber with deliberate slowness, as if whoever approached wanted to ensure their presence was known. Marcus immediately drew his sword, the steel singing as it left its sheath, while positioning himself protectively in front of Princess Amelia. The phosphorescent moss cast dancing shadows on the walls, making the painted faces seem to move in the eerie green light. "Who goes there?" Marcus called out, his voice commanding despite the surreal circumstances. "Show yourself!" A figure emerged from the shadows of the far passage, an elderly man wearing simple grey robes, his long white hair and beard giving him an almost mystical appearance. What struck both Marcus and Amelia immediately was the lack of surprise on his weathered face, as if he had been expecting them. "Captain Thornfield, Princess Amelia," the old man said with a slight bow, his voice carrying the weight of years. "I am Brother Vincent, keeper of the Royal Archives. I apologize for the dramatic circumstances of our meeting, but recent events have made secrecy essential." "Brother Vincent?" Amelia stepped forward despite Marcus's protective gesture. "I've never heard of you, and I know everyone who serves in the palace." A sad smile crossed the old man's features. "That is by design, Your Highness. My order has served the royal family for over 8 centuries, maintaining records and secrets that are deemed too dangerous for common knowledge. We exist in the spaces between official history and uncomfortable truth."
Marcus kept his sword raised, his instincts warning him that this situation was far from normal. "What is this place?"
"And what are you doing here?" Brother Vincent gestured toward the stone table laden with documents. This chamber has served as the true royal archive since the reign of King Aldrich the Great. Every significant event, every decision that shaped Valdoria, every secret that could threaten the crown, all of it is documented here. His eyes fixed on Amelia with an expression of deep concern. Including the truth about your family's bloodline, Princess. The words hit Amelia like a physical blow.
What do you mean? The truth about our bloodline?
We are direct descendants of King Aldrich, as documented in every official history of Valdoria. Official histories, Brother Vincent repeated with emphasis on the word official. Come, let me show you what the public records do not contain. Against Marcus's better judgment, they followed the elderly monk to the stone table. The documents spread across its surface were written in various languages and scripts, some so ancient that the parchment crumbled at the edges. But among them were more recent papers, including what appeared to be correspondence bearing the royal seal. The tapping you heard, Brother Vincent explained, was my signal. For weeks, I've been trying to warn someone of an impending crisis. The political unrest currently plaguing Valdoria is not merely about economic hardship or calls for democratic reform. There are forces at work that seek to expose certain irregularities in the royal succession. He lifted a leather-bound ledger from the table, its pages yellowed with age. This contains the true genealogical records of the royal family, maintained in secret for over 3 centuries. What you will find here contradicts everything the kingdom believes about the legitimacy of your family's rule. Amelia reached for the ledger with trembling hands, but Marcus intercepted it first, his protective instincts overriding protocol. As he opened to the first page, his expression grew increasingly grave. This can't be accurate, he murmured, though his tone suggested he was beginning to believe it might be. What does it say? Amelia demanded, her patience wearing thin. Brother Vincent answered instead of Marcus. It documents that the royal line was broken during the reign of King James II, approximately 300 years ago. King James died without legitimate heirs, and the crown was secretly passed to his illegitimate son, who was the product of an affair with a palace servant. The revelation hung in the air like a sword suspended above their heads. Amelia felt the world shift beneath her feet as the implications became clear. You're saying that my family, that we're not legitimate rulers? Worse than that, Brother Vincent continued gravely. The deception was maintained through falsified documents and the elimination of anyone who knew the truth. Over the centuries, your ancestors have gone to extraordinary lengths to maintain the fiction of legitimate succession, including arranged marriages designed to legitimize the bloodline through connection to other royal houses. Marcus studied the genealogical charts with a soldier's attention to detail. The documentation was extensive and convincing, complete with birth certificates, marriage records, and death certificates that painted a picture very different from official royal history. If this is true, Marcus said slowly, then the current political unrest could be the least of our concerns. If these documents were to become public, revolution, Amelia finished quietly, the people would never accept that they've been ruled by an illegitimate dynasty for 3 centuries. Brother Vincent nodded solemnly, which brings us to why I've been trying to warn someone. Recent intelligence suggests that certain members of the nobility have discovered fragments of this truth. Lord Chancellor Blackwood in particular has been making inquiries that lead dangerously close to these secrets. The name sent a chill through both Marcus and Amelia. Lord Chancellor Edmund Blackwood was one of King Edward's most trusted advisors, a man who had served the crown for over 20 years. He was also known for his ruthless pragmatism and ambition. You think Blackwood knows? Marcus asked. I think Blackwood is planning to use this knowledge to his advantage, Brother Vincent replied. My sources within the palace suggest he's been meeting secretly with certain foreign ambassadors and prominent members of parliament. If he's planning to expose the royal family's illegitimate status, it would be at a moment calculated to maximize his own political gain. Amelia sank into a stone chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was learning. My parents, do they know any of this? Your father knows fragments of the truth, enough to understand that certain secrets must be protected. But I believe he's unaware of the full scope of the deception, or how close we are to exposure. As if summoned by their conversation about danger, the sound of approaching voices echoed from the passageway through which they had entered. Marcus immediately moved to the hidden entrance, listening intently. Multiple voices, he reported quietly. And they're not palace guards. I would recognize their speech patterns. Brother Vincent's expression grew alarmed. That passageway should be known only to members of my order and the immediate royal family. If others have discovered it, The voices grew closer, and Marcus could make out enough words to determine that the speakers were searching for something or someone. One voice in particular made his blood run cold. "Lord Chancellor Blackwood," he whispered. The trap was closing around them. Whether by coincidence or design, they had walked directly into the heart of a conspiracy that threatened not only Princess Amelia's life, but the very existence of the royal family. The secret chamber that had hidden the truth for centuries was about to become the stage for a confrontation that would determine Valdoria's future. Brother Vincent began frantically gathering the most sensitive documents from the table. "There's another exit," he whispered urgently. "But we must move quickly. If Blackwood finds us here with these records, he'll have all the evidence he needs to destroy my family," Amelia finished, her earlier playful nature replaced by grim determination. As the voices in the passageway grew louder and more distinct, Marcus made a command decision that would prove to be the first of many difficult choices in the days ahead. "Princess, we're leaving. Now." The second passageway led deeper into the bowels of the palace than Amelia had ever imagined possible. Brother Vincent moved with surprising agility for his age, carrying a leather satchel containing the most damaging documents from the secret archive. Behind them, they could hear Blackwood's voice growing more distant, but Marcus knew it was only a matter of time before the Lord Chancellor discovered their escape route. "Where does this lead?" Marcus whispered as they navigated the narrow, winding tunnel. "To the old servant quarters beneath the east wing." Brother Vincent replied softly. "These passages were built during King Aldrich's time as escape routes in case of siege. They haven't been used in living memory." The tunnels branched and twisted like an underground maze, and Amelia began to understand how vast and complex the palace truly was. The official maps she had studied showed only a fraction of the building's actual scope. Her ancestors had constructed a hidden world beneath the public facade, and she was beginning to suspect that the falsified royal bloodline was not the only secret these walls contained. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, they emerged into a small cellar room lined with wine barrels and storage containers. Brother Vincent carefully moved aside a heavy wooden cabinet, revealing a concealed door that opened into the lower level of the palace proper. "We're beneath the servants' hall," he explained quietly. "If we're careful, we can reach my private chambers without being seen." Marcus peered through the doorway, his soldier's instincts analyzing every shadow and potential threat. The corridor beyond was dimly lit by a few flickering torches, and thankfully empty of people. However, he could hear the distant sounds of activity from the floors above. Voices, footsteps, and what sounded like a great deal of commotion. "Something's happening upstairs," he observed grimly. As they made their way through the servant corridors, Brother Vincent led them to a narrow staircase that ascended to his private quarters. His room was sparse but functional, containing a simple bed, a desk covered with papers, and walls lined with books and scrolls. More importantly, it had a window that overlooked the palace courtyard. What they saw through that window confirmed Marcus's fears. The courtyard was filled with activity despite the late hour. Royal guards were positioned at every entrance, and several black carriages bearing the crests of various noble houses were parked near the main entrance. Most ominously, a contingent of parliamentary soldiers had taken positions around the palace perimeter. "It's beginning," Brother Vincent said quietly. "Blackwood has made his move." Amelia pressed closer to the window, watching the scene below with growing alarm. "Those are Lord Pembroke's men and Lady Catherine's carriage. They're members of Parliament, but they've always opposed my father's policies." "They're here for a reason," Marcus concluded, "and I suspect we know what that reason is." Brother Vincent moved to his desk and began pulling specific documents from various drawers and filing boxes. "Princess, what I'm about to tell you may be even more difficult to accept than what you've already learned. The illegitimate bloodline is only part of the threat facing your family." He spread a collection of letters and financial records across the desk. "For the past 6 months, I've been investigating unusual activities within the royal treasury. Large sums of money have been disappearing, ostensibly for infrastructure improvements and foreign diplomatic initiatives. However, my research suggests these funds have been diverted for other purposes." Marcus studied the financial documents with the attention to detail that had made him an effective military officer. "These numbers, the amounts are staggering." "Where has the money actually gone?" "Into private accounts controlled by Lord Chancellor Blackwood and several of his associates," Brother Vincent replied. "They've been systematically embezzling from the royal treasury while simultaneously gathering evidence of the illegitimate bloodline. It appears they plan to expose the royal family's lack of legitimate claim to the throne while positioning themselves as the saviors of Valdoria's financial stability."
The scope of the conspiracy was becoming clear, and it was far more complex than simple political ambition.
Blackwood and his co-conspirators had spent months, possibly years, positioning themselves to seize power through a carefully orchestrated campaign of financial manipulation and historical revelation. If they can prove the royal line is illegitimate, Amelia said slowly, working through the implications, and demonstrate that my family has been fiscally irresponsible, they'll have popular support for a complete change of government, Marcus finished. And conveniently, they'll be the only organized faction ready to step into the power vacuum. A sudden knock at the door made all three of them freeze. The knocking was soft but insistent, and definitely not the aggressive pounding they would expect from hostile forces. "Brother Vincent?" a young female voice called quietly. "It's Sarah. I have news." Brother Vincent quickly gathered the sensitive documents before opening the door to admit a young woman in servant's clothing. Sarah appeared to be in her early 20s with intelligent eyes and the kind of unremarkable appearance that would allow her to move through the palace unnoticed. "Sarah is one of my contacts within the palace staff," Brother Vincent explained to Marcus and Amelia. "She's been monitoring the situation for me." "Brother, it's worse than we feared," Sarah reported breathlessly. "Lord Chancellor Blackwood has convinced the king to call an emergency session of Parliament for tomorrow morning. He claims to have evidence of significant threats to the kingdom's security." "What kind of threats?" Marcus asked. "He's told the king that there's a plot to assassinate the royal family, and that immediate action must be taken to protect the throne. He's requested emergency powers to conduct a full investigation of palace security and personnel." The brilliance of Blackwood's strategy became apparent. By framing his coup as a protective measure, he could eliminate potential opposition while appearing to serve the crown's interests. Once he had emergency powers, he could control the flow of information and manipulate events to his advantage. "My parents," Amelia said with growing panic. "Are they safe?" "For now," Sarah replied, "but they've been confined to their private quarters under protective custody. The king believes he's being safeguarded, but in reality he's been isolated from anyone who might warn him of the real threat." Brother Vincent moved to a wall map of the palace, studying the layout with tactical consideration. "We have perhaps 12 hours before Blackwood's emergency session. If we're going to act, it must be tonight."
"Act how?" Marcus asked.
"We're talking about opposing the Lord Chancellor of Valdoria, a man who has the apparent support of Parliament and control of significant military resources." "We have something he doesn't expect," Brother Vincent replied, tapping the leather satchel containing the archival documents. "We have the complete truth, not just the fragments he's been using for his own purposes." Amelia looked confused. "How does the truth help us?" "If anything, those documents prove that our rule is illegitimate." Brother Vincent smiled for the first time since their meeting began. "Princess, you've been assuming that the documents tell only one story. But I haven't shown you everything yet."
He opened the satchel and removed a sealed envelope, its wax bearing a symbol neither Marcus nor Amelia recognized.
A crown surrounded by intricate geometric patterns. "This," he said solemnly, "contains the final piece of the puzzle, the document that Blackwood doesn't know exists, because it's been hidden even from most members of my order." As he broke the seal and unfolded the ancient parchment within, both Marcus and Amelia leaned forward in anticipation. What they read would change everything they thought they understood about Valdoria's history, their own identities, and the true nature of the conspiracy threatening to destroy them. The document, written in the careful script of a royal scribe from 3 centuries past, began with words that immediately captured their attention. "By royal decree and sacred oath, let it be known that the crown of Valdoria shall pass not by blood alone, but by worthiness proven through trial and sacrifice." The revelation contained in those yellowed pages would prove to be both their salvation and the key to a conflict far more complex than any of them had imagined. The ancient document trembled in Brother Vincent's weathered hands as he read aloud the words that would reshape everything they thought they knew about Valdoria's monarchy. The decree, signed by King Aldric the Great himself, outlined a succession system far more complex than simple hereditary rule. "The crown of Valdoria shall pass to those who demonstrate wisdom in council, courage in adversity, and devotion to the people's welfare." Brother Vincent continued reading. "Should the royal bloodline fail in virtue or circumstance, the crown may pass to any citizen who proves worthy through the ancient trials, as witnessed and verified by the keepers of the sacred trust." Marcus studied the document intently. "The keepers of the sacred trust, that's your order, isn't it?" "Indeed. We are the descendants of King Aldric's most trusted advisors, sworn to ensure that Valdoria is always ruled by those who truly deserve the throne," regardless of their birth. Brother Vincent's eyes held a mixture of pride and burden. The secret you discovered today is not that your family lacks legitimate claim to rule, Princess. It is that legitimacy itself has never been about bloodline alone. Amelia felt her understanding of everything shift once again. You're saying that even if we're not descended from King Aldrich, we could still be legitimate rulers? More than that, Brother Vincent replied. I'm saying that every monarch of Valdoria, for the past 8 centuries, has been chosen and confirmed by our order, based on their worthiness to rule. Some were born to the throne, others earned it through extraordinary service to the kingdom. The public believes in hereditary monarchy because it provides stability, but the reality has always been more complex. Sarah, who had been listening intently, suddenly straightened with alarm.
Brother, we have visitors coming.
Multiple sets of footsteps in the corridor, trying to move quietly. Marcus immediately positioned himself by the door, sword ready, while Brother Vincent quickly gathered the most sensitive documents. But before anyone could take further action, a firm knock echoed through the room. Brother Vincent, a familiar voice called. This is Commander Harrison. I'm here on orders from His Majesty. Please open the door. Marcus recognized the voice. Commander James Harrison was the head of the Royal Guard, a man he had served under for several years. But given the current circumstances, even familiar voices could not be trusted. Commander Harrison, Marcus called back. This is Captain Thornfield. What are your orders? A moment of silence followed, then. Captain, His Majesty has requested that Princess Amelia be brought to the throne room immediately for her protection. Lord Chancellor Blackwood has presented evidence of an imminent threat to the royal family. Brother Vincent shook his head grimly. This was exactly what they had feared. Blackwood was moving to consolidate his control by gathering all potential threats and obstacles in one location. Commander, Marcus replied carefully, what is the nature of this threat? Intelligence suggests a conspiracy involving foreign agents and domestic traders. The king wants all family members secured while we investigate. Through the window, they could see more activity in the courtyard. Additional carriages had arrived, and armed men in parliamentary uniforms were taking positions throughout the palace grounds. Whatever was happening was much larger than a simple power grab. We have to make a choice, Marcus whispered to the others. Go with Harrison and risk walking into Blackwood's trap, or refuse and confirm that we're involved in whatever conspiracy he's claiming exists. Princess Amelia surprised them all by stepping forward decisively. Commander Harrison, I'll come with you, but I insist on bringing Captain Thornfield as my personal security. Very well, Your Highness. But we must move quickly. Brother Vincent pressed the sealed document and several other papers into Marcus's hands. Whatever happens, these must reach someone who can act on them. If the princess is being moved to the throne room, it's likely that Lord Chancellor Blackwood intends to make his accusations public tonight. As they prepared to leave, Sarah whispered urgently, Brother, there's something else. I overheard Lord Blackwood speaking with foreign ambassadors earlier. This isn't just about Valdoria's succession, there are international implications. But there was no time for further explanation. Commander Harrison was growing impatient, and any delay would only increase suspicion. The journey through the palace corridors revealed the extent of the crisis. Armed guards were stationed at every intersection, and the normal bustle of palace life had been replaced by an atmosphere of tension and fear. Servants whispered anxiously in corners, and even the guards appeared nervous and uncertain. The throne room, when they arrived, was a scene unlike anything Amelia had ever witnessed. Her parents, King Edward and Queen Isabella, sat on their thrones looking confused and concerned. Lord Chancellor Blackwood stood before them with several other high-ranking officials, while foreign ambassadors and members of Parliament filled the gallery. Most ominously, a contingent of armed parliamentary soldiers flanked the room, their weapons clearly visible and their allegiance obviously not to the crown. Ah, Princess Amelia, Lord Chancellor Blackwood said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. How fortuitous. Your presence will make this proceeding much more comprehensive. King Edward looked up with relief as his daughter entered. Amelia, Lord Blackwood has presented some very serious allegations about threats to our family and our kingdom. He believes that immediate action is necessary. What kind of allegations? Amelia asked, though she suspected she already knew. Blackwood stepped forward, unrolling a collection of documents. Your Majesty, Princess, distinguished members of Parliament, I have uncovered evidence of a conspiracy that strikes at the very heart of our kingdom's security and legitimacy. He gestured dramatically toward the assembled crowd. Through months of careful investigation, I have discovered that certain individuals have been spreading seditious materials designed to undermine confidence in the royal family. More seriously, I have evidence that foreign agents have infiltrated the highest levels of our government. Marcus tensed, recognizing this as the beginning of Blackwood's orchestrated coup. The Lord Chancellor was preparing to present his carefully edited version of the truth, designed to discredit the royal family while positioning himself as Valdoria's savior. Furthermore, Blackwood continued, my investigation has revealed financial irregularities within the royal treasury, suggesting that someone with access to the highest levels of government has been embezzling public funds. The accusation sent murmurs through the assembled crowd. King Edward looked genuinely shocked, while Queen Isabella's face paled with concern. Lord Chancellor, King Edward said slowly, these are very serious charges. What evidence do you have to support them? Blackwood smiled triumphantly and began displaying documents that Marcus recognized as altered versions of the materials they had seen in Brother Vincent's archive. But as the Lord Chancellor spoke, Marcus realized something that Blackwood himself might not yet understand. By calling this public proceeding, he had also provided them with an opportunity. The documents Brother Vincent had given him contained not just evidence of the royal family's complex legitimacy, but also proof of Blackwood's own embezzlement and conspiracy. If they could find a way to present the complete truth to this assembled crowd, they might be able to turn Blackwood's trap against him. But first, they would have to survive whatever the Lord Chancellor was planning to do with them. As Blackwood continued his presentation, building toward what was obviously going to be a demand for emergency powers, and possibly even the arrest of the royal family, Marcus caught Princess Amelia's eye. She gave him the slightest nod, indicating that she understood the gravity of their situation. The next few minutes would determine not only their personal fates, but the future of Valdoria itself. The tension in the throne room was palpable as Lord Chancellor Blackwood reached the climax of his presentation. He held aloft what appeared to be official documents bearing the royal seal, his voice carrying the authority of someone who believed victory was within his grasp. Your Majesty, members of Parliament, distinguished guests, Blackwood declared. The evidence I have presented tonight demonstrates that our kingdom faces threats from within and without. Foreign gold has corrupted our institutions, and even those we trust most have betrayed their sacred duties. King Edward leaned forward on his throne, his face grave with concern. Lord Chancellor, you have presented serious allegations, but what specific actions are you proposing? I propose the immediate implementation of emergency measures to protect the Crown and Constitution, Blackwood replied smoothly. This includes the temporary suspension of certain governmental functions while a full investigation is conducted, and the appointment of a special council to oversee the kingdom's affairs during this crisis. Marcus recognized this as the moment when Blackwood would make his move for power. But as the Lord Chancellor continued speaking, Marcus noticed something that gave him hope. Brother Vincent had quietly entered the throne room through a side entrance, carrying his leather satchel and accompanied by several other elderly men in simple robes. The keepers of the sacred trust had arrived. Your Majesty, Brother Vincent called out in a clear voice that carried across the room. Before any such drastic measures are taken, there are certain facts that this assembly should know. Blackwood's face darkened with anger. Who dares interrupt these proceedings? Guards, remove these intruders immediately. But King Edward raised his hand. Wait, I recognize this man. Brother Vincent has served our family faithfully for many years as an advisor on historical matters. Let him speak. Brother Vincent stepped forward, his bearing dignified despite his simple robes. Your Majesty, Lord Chancellor Blackwood has presented you with carefully selected portions of the truth. But like any skilled deceiver, he has omitted the facts that would reveal his own culpability. These are desperate lies from a man trying to protect traitors. Blackwood snarled. But Marcus could see uncertainty creeping into his expression. Then let us examine the complete records, Brother Vincent replied calmly. He opened his satchel and began removing documents. Lord Chancellor, you have spoken of financial irregularities within the royal treasury. Perhaps you would care to explain these records showing transfers of crown funds into private accounts bearing your signature. Gasps echoed through the throne room as Brother Vincent displayed banking records that clearly showed Blackwood's embezzlement scheme. The foreign ambassadors in the gallery exchanged worried glances, obviously recognizing that they had become involved in something far more complex than they had bargained for. Furthermore, Brother Vincent continued, you have questioned the legitimacy of our royal family's rule. But you have failed to mention that legitimacy in Valdoria has never been based solely on bloodline. He held up the ancient decree they had discovered earlier. This is the original charter establishing the succession laws of our kingdom, signed by King Goldric the Great himself. It establishes that the crown passes to those deemed worthy through trial and virtue, as confirmed by the sacred order established to protect our kingdom's true interests. Princess Amelia stepped forward, understanding that this was her moment to act. Lord Chancellor Blackwood, if you question our family's right to rule, then let us submit to the ancient trials as decreed by our kingdom's founder. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembly. The ancient trials were largely forgotten by most citizens, remembered only as historical curiosities. But Brother Vincent's presence and the documents he carried made it clear that they were far from obsolete. "This is ridiculous," Blackwood protested, but his voice betrayed his growing desperation. "Medieval superstitions have no place in modern governance." "On the contrary," one of the other keepers spoke up, "the trials have been conducted in secret for centuries, ensuring that every ruler of Valdoria truly earned their position through wisdom, courage, and devotion to our people's welfare." Marcus suddenly understood the full scope of what was happening. The keepers hadn't just been preserving documents. They had been testing and confirming each generation of rulers according to the ancient standards. The political crisis had provided them with an opportunity to make their role public and to demonstrate the true foundation of Valdoria's monarchy. "Very well," King Edward said, rising from his throne with a dignity that reminded everyone why he had been respected as a ruler for 20 years. "If our right to rule is in question, we will submit to the judgment of our kingdom's original laws." Brother Vincent bowed deeply.
Your Majesty, the trials are not merely ceremonies.
They are genuine tests of character, wisdom, and dedication. Are you prepared to risk everything on your worthiness to lead? "We are," King Edward replied firmly, with Queen Isabella and Princess Amelia nodding their agreement. But then Brother Vincent turned to Blackwood with a stern expression. "Lord Chancellor, since you have appointed yourself as the alternative to current leadership, you must also submit to the trials. The crown cannot pass to someone who has not proven their worthiness according to our kingdom's sacred laws." The color drained from Blackwood's face as he realized that his carefully orchestrated coup had become something entirely different. He had expected to seize power through manipulation and political maneuvering, not through genuine tests of character and ability. "Furthermore," Marcus added, stepping forward with the banking documents, "before any trials begin, perhaps Lord Chancellor Blackwood would care to explain these financial records to the assembled representatives of Parliament and our international guests." The evidence of embezzlement was damning, and combined with the revelation of the sacred trials, it completely undermined Blackwood's position. The foreign ambassadors began conferring among themselves, clearly distancing themselves from what they now recognized as a failed coup attempt. The members of Parliament who had supported Blackwood found themselves in an increasingly untenable position. They had come expecting to witness the fall of the monarchy, but instead were seeing the exposure of their allies' corruption and the revelation of ancient laws that legitimized the very institution they had sought to destroy. "The trials will begin at dawn," Brother Vincent announced. "His Majesty King Edward, Her Majesty Queen Isabella, Her Highness Princess Amelia, and Lord Chancellor Blackwood will each face 3 tests. The trial of wisdom, which examines their understanding of justice and governance, the trial of courage, which tests their willingness to sacrifice for others, and the trial of devotion, which measures their commitment to Valdoria's people above their own interests." As the assembly began to disperse with much animated discussion about the unprecedented events they had witnessed, Princess Amelia approached Marcus privately. "Captain," she said quietly, "when this morning began, I was frustrated by your protection and eager to escape to my books. I had no idea that my simple request for you to please stop following me would lead us to uncover a conspiracy and rediscover the true foundation of our kingdom." Marcus smiled for the first time in what felt like days. "Your Highness, I suspect that your willingness to seek truth, even when it might have been dangerous to your family, is exactly the kind of quality the ancient trials were designed to measure." The trials that followed over the next 3 days became the stuff of legend. King Edward demonstrated wisdom by proposing solutions to complex legal disputes that satisfied both justice and mercy. Queen Isabella showed courage by personally negotiating with hostile foreign representatives who had been part of Blackwood's conspiracy. Princess Amelia proved her devotion by proposing to give up her inheritance to fund relief efforts for citizens affected by the economic crisis. Lord Chancellor Blackwood, meanwhile, failed each trial spectacularly. His wisdom consisted of self-serving legal interpretations. His courage evaporated when faced with personal risk, and his devotion extended only to his own advancement. The revelation of Blackwood's embezzlement, combined with his failure in the trials, led to his arrest and the unraveling of the entire conspiracy. The foreign agents who had supported him fled Valdoria, while the domestic conspirators faced prosecution for treason. But perhaps most importantly, the trials had served their ancient purpose. They had demonstrated to the people of Valdoria that their rulers truly deserved their positions, not through accident of birth, but through proven character and ability. In the months that followed, Princess Amelia would often return to the royal library, though now she understood it contained only a fraction of her family's true history. The hidden chambers beneath the palace became a symbol of the deeper truths that supported their kingdom, while the keepers of the sacred trust emerged from secrecy to serve as public advisors and guardians of justice. And Captain Marcus Thornfield, whose vigilant protection had inadvertently saved the kingdom, was promoted to head of a new institution, the Royal Guard for Truth, tasked with ensuring that never again would conspiracy and corruption threaten Valdoria's ancient foundations. The princess's simple plea of "please stop" had indeed stopped something. Not just an overly protective guard, but a plot that would have destroyed everything her family and her kingdom represented. In seeking to escape the burden of being watched, she had instead discovered the true meaning of being worthy to rule. Thus ends the tale of how a young princess's quest for freedom became the salvation of a kingdom, and how the discovery of ancient truths proved more powerful than any modern conspiracy. In Valdoria, legitimacy would never again be taken for granted, and the crown would forever be held by those who truly earned the right to wear it.